Let's take a time going backwards, okay? All right. Now I know that a good, like, maybe I'd say like a good chunk of my audiences are like know Hispanic stuff, right? Or grew up Hispanically or knows about like Hispanic stuff, right? So for those who are like who grew up Hispanically, do you guys remember El Chavo del Ocho? So there's a video that popped up specifically that says how this comedian created the biggest sitcom in the world. So for those who don't know, El Chavo del Ocho was a show specifically, if I remember correctly, it was like a sitcom show. Because I hardly remember much about it, but I remember it was like what, El Chavo del Ocho, and then it had like a girl or so with like glasses or so, with like big thick glasses or so, made her eyeballs look big and stuff, and all this. I guess you could say like I don't know the whole premise of the story itself, but it kind of reminds me of like children just being like children or so, I guess, question mark. But I'm not too sure. Maybe they'll explain it a little bit more to me about it, but like, let's take down old memory lanes for those who are pretty old, you know.
The history of comedy is long and convoluted, and looking into it, you'll find that the biggest comedians today are influenced by the ones that came before them, going back generation to generation. Evolving from stage plays to film to television, comedy has thrived. However, in America and in many parts of the world, comedy has found its place in the sitcom. Sitcom stands for situational comedy, which is a definition as broad as its selection, having a wide variety of shows under its umbrella, from I Love Lucy to Rick and Morty.
Dude, I Love Lucy, dude. Oh my god, dude, I remember that show.
Thing is considered a sitcom at this point.
I remember that
but
show.
That doesn't mean there aren't shows that define the genre more specifically. Everyone has heard of or watched shows like Friends.
I remember Friends.
Seinfeld, and The Office.
Seinfeld I remember too.
Shows with hundreds of millions in revenue.
Never watched The Office though.
Modern day streaming services guaranteed viewers. Shows that are so easily digestible, some people leave it on day and night to use as background noise. And shows with huge cult followings that are still very active to this day. But what if I told you that there was a show bigger than all of them?
I know exactly which one he's gonna call out.
And not only that, but one bigger than all of those titans combined.
Yeah!
A show that has never been replaced and is still viewed daily a total of 91 million times, becoming one of the most famous programs in the history of television.
Dude. Oh, the memories, dude. Dude, this fucking show, bro.
Today, I'm going to tell you the story about a show unknown to people outside of Latin America, the man responsible for its billion-dollar price tag, and the story behind its rise to greatness.
El Chavo del Ocho!
This show would come as a result of over 20 years of one man's hard work and talent, whose legacy has left an everlasting impression on the hearts of millions of people.
Oh my god, that fucking, I forgot the name of that show though, but I remember this show too as well. That fucking that outfit.
This man's name is Chespirito. Chespirito was born Roberto Mario Gomez Bolaños on the 21st of February, 1929 in Mexico City. Roberto's early life seemed relatively normal, even with crime, gang activity, and political unrest beginning to increase as his participation in sports like soccer and boxing kept him on the straight and narrow and away from trouble during his younger years. Mexico after World War II saw drastic social, economic, and political changes. Political changes stemming from the dominant party's policies, instituting a protectionist import substitution economy, leading to a closing off from foreign markets, making Mexican businesses extremely reliant on governmental contracts, helping with social welfare programs, and helping the economy grow. But
damn, is that what it really looked like back then? That's crazy to see that actually.
And also causing an insane amount of corruption. Some of the good things that came with this exponential growth was the rapid development in industrialization and urbanization. What would follow is higher living standards for people who moved to these modern areas, and the replacing of radio with television.
Clock Clock sería Nor Suiza porque sí es de pollo.
After dropping out of college, he took a copywriting job at an advertising agency when he was 22, where he specialized in broadcast media.
Oh my god, dude, this show, dude. Fuck, what was the name of this show? Bro, this show was so fucking funny, dude. God, I fucking love this show.
And by the mid-1950s, he had worked his way to writing scripts for TV and film. From the beginning, he worked on comedy, and for the next 20 years, he would write for some of the most famous shows and movies that Mexico had to offer. Movies like Cómicos y Canciones, and programs like El Estudio de Pedro Vargas. Developing his skills and earning his famous nickname that's a play on Shakespeareito, or Little Shakespeare, recognizing his talents and writing abilities, as well as making fun of his height, coming in at 5 foot 4 inches, because what's more fitting than a comedian having a joke for a name? In 1968, Gomez would finally get his own show after TIM, a television upstart attempting to compete with the big names in the broadcasting space, would take a chance and make a comedy show their signature program as opposed to the popular telenovela with Chespirito. These 40-minute episodes of sketch comedy would cement Chespirito's talented name as a writer and comedian, as he found immense success through it, where we would see his famous personalities like El Chapulín Colorado, Dr.
Oh my god, El Chapulín. Oh, okay, so that, yeah.
Chapatín, Chaparrón Bonaparte, and his most famous character, El Chavo del Ocho, for the first time. His characters stole the show, as protagonists tend to do, and people would come to love them more and more over the years, and the success of this show would lead to the one he's most known for a few years later. Year after year, he finds himself blowing the ratings out of the water, and funny enough, this would only be the start of Chespirito's already huge success. And as the ratings and profits would start to climb, so would the severity of the situation behind closed doors.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Because what's most fascinating about this time is not what's happening on screen nor behind the scenes, and basically has zero to do with Señor Bolaños himself. Because once we take a deeper look into the business side of things, we'll find the conclusion to an 8-year fight for the control over broadcasting in Mexico, and what I like to call the Secret War.
What the fuck?
Mexican TV is a weird and fascinating topic, as I'm sure it is for many other countries. But earlier I mentioned TIM's competitive spirit, and I don't really know how to put this other than shit's crazy. So gather around the campfire and let old Papa Alexi give you some IRL lore about my motherland's TV turf war. Today, there are 3 major companies that have television more or less controlled: Televisa, TV Azteca, and Imagen Televisión.
I've never heard of the third one, but I've heard of the first 2 though.
With Televisa basically having a monopoly over broadcasting in Mexico. So how did they get so much power? Well, it starts off with this great Catholic man, Eugenio Garzazada, who in 1963 founded TIM. The Garzazada family were very wealthy and generous brewers, known for their good treatment of their workers, offering them social services and other benefits, instituting crazy ideas like treat others with respect in their workplaces, and giving their employees less hours at work to give them more time at home.
Wow, that's crazy to hear that in fucking 2025, dude. That is a crazy thing to hear that.
Señor Garzazada was a very intelligent man, studying at MIT in the States while some stuff was going on back home. When he graduated, he was forced to work his way up through the ranks at his family's company, which gave him even more street cred. And the family basically built Monterrey, Mexico's 9th largest city and 2nd largest metropolitan area. They were very respected people, and he even has an award named after him to recognize people and institutions.
No, not really canceled, because like people always overwork their like co-worker, like their workers or so, their workforces. Like they never give sympathy or so, even to the lowest common class, or like the common, you know, the bottom of the tier job, you know. So that's what makes it like interesting to hear that. These days, at least, you know.
People's well-being. So here's where it gets crazy, and some of that corruption I was talking about earlier comes into play. TIM started as a radio station, as Eugenio looked toward the future, seeing the trends of the market and finding that the dissemination of information was becoming more and more valuable. Eugenio, correct in his assessment, found immense success even as he transferred into TV. This success, however, wasn't completely clean, because by request of the fucking president of Mexico himself, a radio tycoon, Salispeiro, joined forces with the Monterrey group as they proceeded to fucking obliterate the competition. Outside of a few local stations, there was only one real threat to their seizing of power. And who was this real threat? Oh, I don't know, just the guy who had a huge monopoly over TV and put fucking color in it. He didn't invent color TV, but he improved upon the technology so much that it became the standard, or STSC. What Edison did for the light bulbs, this guy did for color TV. Right before TIM started buying stations left and right, Guillermo González Camarena, who owned Telesistema Mexicano, mysteriously dies in a car crash, leaving them unstable and without a clear vision to continue. TIM eventually joins forces with big movie businessman.
That's interesting. Thank you for the follow. Welcome.
Manuel Barbachano Ponce, where he would affiliate 11 out of the 15 stations he owned with them after finding himself in financial troubles to give them 50% of the Mexican broadcasting territory. With TIM's innovative formats, lovable new faces, the creation of iconic productions, and exporting those materials to other countries in the region, it wouldn't be long before Telesistema lost its hegemony. Even with this newfound success, however, TIM would find itself in a precarious situation after losing money, ratings, and strong advertisers like Procter & Gamble. During this time, talks between Eugenio's nephew and the son of one of the founders of Telesistema Mexicano, both now very influential people of both their families' companies, were taking place. With both television stations being taxed, feed, and seeing more and more losses every quarter, discussions of a merger were being spread amongst the higher-ups, with some disapproving. A few months before the merger, Eugenio would be assassinated in his car by members of the September 23rd Communist League at a red light on his way to work.
Jesus.
And another higher-up at the company who disagreed with the decision to merge would die just a few days later from heart failure. Supposedly, he had a form of cancer and that caused complications. However, there was never an official autopsy, and the fact that 3 important people who had power and influence just died right before key moments is suspicious, to say the least. We don't know whether Eugenio disagreed or not, but with 2 major players in the company gone, the famous or infamous merger would take place in 1973. And they would officially become the most powerful TV conglomerate in Mexican history. And in this same year, after years of hard work, Chespirito would finally get the show that changed. The first episode premiered on February 26, 1973, to widespread love and excitement from the general public, as people were excited to see more of the genius on screen. The show was split into 2 segments. The first half would be a sketch for one of his other characters, like Chompiras y El Petarete, a criminal duo who were really bad at their not jobs, and El Chapulín Colorado, a goofy, clumsy, incompetent superhero with a heart of gold that always seemed to save the day one way or another. As El Chavo and many others, he brought joy to people having fun and doing what he loved with people he loved, which I'm sure helped him keep his innocent spirit alive, because astonishingly, Chespirito was well into the latter half of his life by this time, but the way he played these characters showed that he had plenty of energy left in the tank.
No contaban con mi astucia. ¡Sigan a los buenos!
El Chavo follows a poor orphan boy, or Chavo, from apartment number 8. We don't know where his guardians are, and we've never seen his apartment, but where he tends to be most of the time is in a barrel in the common area of the apartment complex, as he gets himself and his friends into trouble. One of Chavo's friends was La Chilindrina, played by Maria Antonieta de las Nieves, who played a significant role in his shows, and came to be one of the people's most favorite characters, as she would get her own spin-off show years later. Carlos Villagran Eslava, who played Chavo's rival, Kiko, became a part of the show after he impressed Chespirito with his comedic abilities during a party held for his friend, Ruben Aguirre, who played Profesor Girafales. Villagran had the strange ability to inflate his cheeks out of proportion, and this endearing trait would come to be Kiko's signature characteristic on the show. Edgar
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know about that actually.
Vivar, Angelinas Fernandez, and Florinda Mesa would play Señor Barriga, the landlord, Doña Cleotilda, the retired old woman whom the children called La Bruja, and Doña Florinda, a widowed woman who is at times judgmental to the others in the complex, and Kiko's mom. The final member of the cast is Don Ramon, played by Ramon Valdez.
Dude, I love Don Ramon. Ramon is so fucking funny, dude.
He's La Chilindrina's father, who's kind-hearted but has a short temper and has explosive emotions. He's constantly disciplining Chavo and his friends for causing trouble, and constantly getting slapped by Florinda for being poor. The show mixed wordplay, funny gags, slapstick, and many other forms of comedy to create a universal and family-friendly experience that everyone could enjoy. So many people across South America came back every week for timeless humor that resonates with everyone, no matter where you're from. How these people he created would get out of or deal with the trouble they got themselves into with downright hilarious jokes that even make me as an American laugh gives you even more reasons to watch. Nobody denies that Chespirito was the mastermind behind the show, but one thing to remember is that everyone pulled their weight and contributed something to it that no other person could. Many of them were well-respected actors and artists prior to their involvement on the show, and all of them were loved by thousands of people. The same cast would play different characters in every work that he did, and the productions just wouldn't be the same without them. He made a comedy the #1 program for years in a country where drama reigns supreme. The telenovela, even to this day, rules TV in all parts of Latin America.
True. That is so facts.
Dramas that at times contain some of the worst things people can do to each other. So Bolaños wanted to change that. He wanted to bring an innocent and silly escape for the average man, woman, and child who wants a break from their difficult life. The project was nurtured by passionate craftsmen and women who loved what they did and had the freedom to make what they wanted in an industry that's known for how strict it can be. This passion, however, seemed to fade over time, and behind the scenes, drama amongst the cast would cause a downward spiral that led to its eventual cancellation 7 years later.
Yikes.
Okay, where do we start? Carlos Villagran leaves the show in '78, at the end of the 6th season, with Ramon Valdez leaving the next year. With 2 extremely important characters leaving the star-studded cast, Televisa pulls the plug and it's cancelled in 1980. After doing something for 7 years, you might start to like that thing less, and working with people who disagree with your ideas wears you down over time. So that's it. Unreconcilable problems caused by creative differences led to 2 of the major stars of the biggest show in Mexico's history leave before it had a proper finale, right?
Yikes.
Well, not exactly. The popularity of El Chavo del Ocho brought an addictive level of fame that Villagran and de las Nieves couldn't live without, and so they started working as their characters outside of the show, while not owning the rights to them. This, as you could imagine, caused some tension between them and Chespirito, and eventually led to both of them going to court. Villagran claims to have created the character, and therefore he had the rights to it. However, he lost his lawsuit as the decision went in favor of Bolaños. As a result, Villagran would move to Argentina, where Bolaños had no rights to Kiko and could continue to work without any fear of legal backlash. Villagran also claimed to have a romantic relationship with Florinda Mesa, saying that he went to Bolaños for advice to end it, and afterwards he had to go to the hospital to deal with the depression from the breakup.
Bolaños and Mesa later became a couple, and this possibly caused even more tension between them.
Oh, I see.
Mesa, of course, denies this ever happening, and said this in response on a talk show in July of 2024.
Carlos se fue porque le ofrecieron algo mejor.
Pero si anduviste con él.
De eso no voy a hablar, principalmente. Tú conociste a Roberto.
Claro.
Un hombre muy inteligente.
Muy. Diosas, nos queríamos mucho.
Me imaginas a mí con un pendejo.
Which is honestly a pretty good comeback to someone trying to say you needed to go to the hospital after they broke up with you. However, the level of ego is unreal. But it wouldn't stop here, because De Las Nieves is a masterclass at method acting, because she was a child on set and in real life. De Las Nieves in 1994 would approach Televisa with the idea of a spin-off show for her character to Bolaños' clear and verbal disapproval that Televisa would completely ignore. Bolaños wouldn't win the battle over his character either, because in 2003, De Las Nieves would gain the rights to La Chilindrina after a long time of disputing. De Las Nieves also called Florinda Mesa a homewrecker, spreading a rumor that Bolaños had an affair with her that led to his divorce with his first wife and mother of his 6 children. These rumors I don't think were ever disputed by the couple either, leading to some people in the general public disliking Mesa more and more.
Jesus.
Circling back to Ramon Valdez, his reason for leaving would be very simple. Florinda Mesa saying that, quote,
he couldn't deal with the riffraff anymore.
But this is not to say that Valdez was perfect and didn't at least contribute a little to the chaos on set either. Coworker Ruben Aguirre stated, quote,
Ramon Valdez was hard to work with. There were always delays in tapings because Don Ramon would be late.
And Valdez even had a falling out with Chespirito because he didn't give him 20,000 pesos to buy a house, allegedly. Him leaving El Chavo del Ocho seemed to be the nail in the coffin for the show, but not entirely for their friendship, as it seems they reconciled afterwards, and Don Ramon, after leaving, would appear for one last time to surprise both viewers and cast alike.
¿no? Bueno, sale, vale. Yo busco primero. Ándale. Al cabo no está en el barril porque...
I think I remember watching this specific episode actually.
¿Cómo estás, mi amor? ¿Cómo estás, mija?
Ay, papito lindo, déjame. Ay, papito. ¿Sabes qué, papito? Le voy a avisar a mi bisabuela.
De Las Nieves and Ramon Valdez had a real and beautiful relationship that would imitate the roles they played on the show. The character of La Chilindrina cries in a strange and comedic way that's meant to imitate the crying of real children. However, the tears she would shed that day were very real. I'm sure.
Really? I actually did not know about that, actually. Wow.
There are many more things that led to the show's end, but the main one was the drop in ratings. People missed Don Ramon and people missed Kiko. They wanted the characters they had come to love more and more over the years to stay, and that just couldn't be done.
True.
The show was supposed to give people a break from dramas, but came to be one behind the scenes, and this would severely affect the quality. They tried to fill a void that couldn't be filled, and it was impossible to keep it going in the state it was in. After 8 seasons and 312 episodes, the final one would air on January 7th, 1980, never giving the ending the people wanted and needed from their favorite show. Maybe Bolaños was too controlling over his baby. Maybe Bolaños did in fact cheat on his wife with Mesa. Maybe he didn't give Ramon money for the wrong reasons. Maybe not letting his friends play their characters outside of the show was actually him being a bad friend, and maybe, just maybe, he wasn't the saint everyone thinks he is. We don't really know every detail of what happened, and we'll never know with 100% certainty who's telling the truth. All we can know is that something happened to cause this family to break and never really talk to each other again afterwards. Human beings are flawed and fallen creatures, so honestly, two things could be true at once. Bolaños could be a saint, but he could also have done some terrible things. No human being is perfect, and we are all capable of more evil than we realize. That we can know with certainty.
Wow.
Sí, es el objetivo principal, divertir. Si adicionalmente podemos dar un mensaje, lo hacemos. Ya hay un mensaje en que no haya nada negativo, pero el objetivo es divertir. Mientras vemos la sonrisa de un niño y entendemos que ese niño estuvo X tiempo a la semana contento, olvidando sus problemas. Los niños tienen muchos problemas y los grandes también. Gracias a nosotros ya nos sentimos totalmente pagados.
Chespirito's life ended on Friday, the 28th of November in 2014. Parkinson's disease.
Wow, 2014. Holy shit, dude. I didn't even realize this, actually.
Had caused complications, and it took him at 2:30 p.m. A private funeral was held for his close friends and family, and Villagrán even attended and seemed to reconcile with Florinda Mesa, telling the Latin Times, quote,
"It was so important for me to be there, with a friend, teacher, and companion. We were a tight family at one point. We had no resentments."
The sadness was felt all across the world, and following the death of a legend, they gave him a parade in his honor.
Damn.
40,000 fans showed up that day to pay their respects in person, with some dressed as their favorite characters to commemorate their hero. With millions more watching the proceeding at home, his body was laid to rest in the Panteón Francés in Mexico City, putting an end to his story. Chespirito showed the power of the love he had for everyone, and even brought people together in celebration of a life well lived after his death. Professor Girafales died 2 years later. Doña Cleotilda died in 94. Ramon Valdez died in 88. Kiko gave his last live performance and retired the character in Rio de Janeiro. Florinda Mesa is retired, looking after the Bolaños estate and taking care of the show. De las Nieves is still in her bullshit. And Edgar Vivar went to work on other projects and hasn't said much, if anything, on his time in the limelight. Looking at an unreleased Chilean interview shows just how close everyone truly was with each other. The energy in the room is happy, peaceful, and loving as they listen to their idol answer the reporters' questions.
The funny thing about it, right? It's funny. It's kind of funny to hear how, like, you know, when you start off to making a show or a band or like anything or so on the journey with your friends and everything, it's funny how like it always seems to like repeat itself. It's like a constant repeating thing. When there's a point or so in the limelight where they get like super famous and everything, and then their egos goes crazy, or like there seems to be like complications with money and payments and all this other shit. And then they start breaking off and start doing their own thing because of that, you know, that turmoil, you know? It's always a constant repeat, you know? It's funny how like it always seems to follow the same path almost like every single time when it comes to like these situations themselves. They're like, yeah, you know, we were close, we were family, you know, nothing can break us apart and everything like that. And then, well, Lord of behold, you know, something does happen along the pathway towards fame and glory, where it just like that friendship breaks, you know, it slowly starts tipping over, like the glass starts filling, right? It's like a glass of water, right? It starts filling herself, right? But then at a point or so, it will start to overflow and then break apart, you know, start cracking eventually, you know? And it's funny how we always see the same thing over and over and over again when it comes to these things. Yesterday, I purchased a world map, gave my wife a dart, and said her throw this, and whenever it lands, I'm taking you to holidays. Looks like we're having a 3 weeks behind the fridge. Remember, your password has probably locked you out more than it locked other people until we meet again. What the hell, Jarby?
I wish they could have stayed like this.
It's impossible.
Chespirito changed the world more than anyone could have ever imagined, and he did it with a TV show. He wanted to speak to the average person. He wanted to give people a break. He wanted to make people smile and laugh. He did it humble, faith-driven, in the name of love, and he's helped more than he could ever know. People like my mother. My mom is my hero and hasn't had the easiest life. When she watches this show, when we watch it together, we laugh a lot. And to see her like that, even if it's just for those 20 minutes, makes this billion-dollar IP priceless to me. So, from the bottom of this broken, hardened, and sinful heart, thank you.
Such a cool show. It's definitely a different show from its time.
Hey guys,
you know?
It's Alexi. Sorry for taking a lot longer than I thought I was going to. Life has been absolutely insane the last few months, but ain't that just the way? I finally bought that new computer I was talking about,
nice.
So a lot more videos in the works,
hey.
on the way. But again, these things take a lot of time and brain power to make. So if you want to see me more often, go check out my Alexi GG channel, as that's where I'll be live streaming and playing games and all that stuff. Like, subscribe, do the little bell notification thing, whatever YouTubers say, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Love you.
That was a good video. I like that. That was good. That was really good. I like that video. That was a very good video. Honestly, pretty cool. Very, very, very interesting. Good thing I arrived towards the ending. The industry, no matter where you go, it's just the fame. It's just that fame and gloriness or so. That's always that thing or so that people have to overcome. You know, for me personally, I don't have a massive ego. I always have my ego checked every single time. So besides, I'm my own biggest criticism at the end of the day. But yeah, Chavo del Ocho was definitely a very interesting. It was a really cool show. I actually did enjoy watching this show. It was good times. It's very interesting to kind of hear what basically happened behind the scenes or so, especially because like I don't live at that part of the world, you know. But it's very cool to see like the shows. But I have seen the show. I've seen it. I watched it almost like all the time or so. I had some good times with it, you know. And everything, you know, it's the same kind of vein of old times. I recently started watching old cartoons with the commercials, like the ones they used to play on Saturdays. Yeah, these were good. I like these. This show was good. This guy was pretty funny or so with El Chavo del Ocho, and then this one specifically too as well. I forgot the like I wasn't really aware of his name that much, but El Chavo del Ocho was the one that I remember quite a bit. Plus also the one at the beginning or so, at the beginning of the video, where there was like the classes and everything like that. Like that one was also really good too as well. So it's very interesting. I like it. That was a good video. Good video. Love it. Just summon every Mexican and Brazilian to the video. Yeah, good shit. Good shit indeed.